What would a man do when danger, desire, and destiny all collided in one single moment? Caleb Morgan did not know the answer yet, but he felt the first pull of fate the moment he stepped into Deadwood Gulch. The dust devil rolled across Main Street like a ghost set loose from some forgotten grave. It spun toward the prairie, carrying scraps of newspaper and dry weeds until it vanished into the blazing afternoon light. Caleb stood there, squinting against the glare, one hand resting on the grip of his Colt, .45. The town looked tired, worn, and somehow still standing. Weather-beaten buildings leaned together as if holding each other up. Deadwood Gulch, 1876. A place where a man could outrun his sins or be buried beside them. Caleb's spurs clinked softly as he walked past the Broken Wheel Saloon. Laughter spilled through the batwing doors. Piano notes stumbled over each other while glass shattered somewhere inside. He ignored the noise. He had seen towns like this too many times. Every one of them promised change, but none had given him peace. Maybe this one wouldn't either. Another drifter, muttered Silas Pritchard from the general store porch, probably got blood on his hands. Caleb didn't react. Silas was more right than he knew. Caleb carried enough ghosts to fill a graveyard, Union and Confederate alike. The war had ended, but the war inside Caleb had not. At the edge of town stood a two-story boarding house with faded blue letters reading, Lane's Boarding House. It looked cleaner than anything around it, with proper windows and flower boxes someone cared for. Caleb stepped inside, hearing a small bell ring above the door. The cleanliness surprised him. Swept floors, bright curtains, and the smell of fresh bread. It felt like stepping into another world. A young woman appeared from the back room, wiping flour from her hands. Abigail Lane. Honey-colored hair, steady eyes, and the posture of someone who had faced storms and refused to bend. She was younger than Caleb expected, no more than 25, but her eyes carried years of hardship. "Looking for a room?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, yet firm. "I run a clean place. $2 a week. Breakfast and supper included. No drinking in the rooms, no visitors after 9, absolutely no gunplay. Break my rules and you'll sleep with the coyotes." Caleb almost smiled. Fair enough. She studied him with sharp green eyes, taking in the dust, the scars, the quiet watchfulness. "Name?" "Caleb Morgan." "Well, Mr. Morgan, I'm Abigail Lane. Folks call me Abby." She wrote his name in the register with a steady hand. Caleb noticed the pale band on her ring finger where a wedding ring once sat. He didn't ask. The town gossip would later tell him her husband had been a mean drunk who died in a card game, leaving debts and trouble behind him. Abby handed him the key. "Second door on the right, supper at 6. The room was simple but clean. Caleb set down his saddlebag and washed the travel dust from his face. For the first time in weeks, the quiet felt safe. But peace didn't last long. Horses thundered down Main Street. Shouts filled the air. Hard voices, mean voices. Caleb stepped to the window and saw 5 riders pull up in front of the boarding house. Dust swirled around them like smoke. The leader dismounted with cold confidence. Elias Crow. Caleb had seen his kind before, the kind who enjoyed the killing more than the cause. Tall, lean, with a black beard and eyes as empty as a dead man's. Guns worn low, tied down, a fast draw. "Mrs. Lane," Crow called, voice sharp as a knife. "Come on out. Time to talk about your financial obligations." Financial obligations. Caleb already knew this wasn't about money. Abby stepped outside, chin lifted, though Caleb could see the tremor in her hand from upstairs. "I told you," she said clearly. "I don't owe you anything. My husband's debts died with him." Crow laughed. "Sweetheart, in my book a wife inherits everything, the good and the bad." His men laughed with him, 4 rough faces marked by years of trouble. "I run a respectable house," Abby said. "Now leave." The slap came out of nowhere, hard, cruel, so loud it echoed up the stairs. Caleb buckled on his gun belt before he even realized he was moving. He stepped through the doorway and onto the porch just as Abby pressed a hand to her cheek, standing straight despite the pain. Caleb walked past her and faced Crow. "The lady asked you to leave." Crow's eyes narrowed. "Who might you be?" "Just a man who doesn't like seeing women pushed around." Crow's hand drifted toward his gun. "You know who you're talking to?" "Don't much care." The street went silent. Doorways and windows filled with faces, everyone waiting for blood. One of Crow's men, a young kid eager to prove himself, went for his gun. Caleb didn't think. His Colt cleared leather and fired faster than a heartbeat. The kid dropped, screaming and clutching his shoulder. The other outlaws stared, shocked by how fast it happened. "Your boy needs a doctor," Caleb said calmly. "Take him and ride out." Crow's jaw tightened. "You just signed your death warrant, stranger, and the widow's too." "Maybe, but not today." Crow stared at Caleb long and hard, then finally signaled his men. "We'll be back," he promised with a cold smile. As the riders thundered off, Abby turned to Caleb, eyes wide with fear. Not of him, but of what he'd started. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "You don't know what you brought down on yourself." Caleb looked at her bruised cheek and made a choice he didn't fully understand yet. "Then I reckon you'll need someone to stand with you." For the first time, Abby smiled, a small, brave thing. "Supper's at 6, Mr. Morgan." But both of them knew trouble would come before then. The morning sun crept through the thin curtains of Caleb's room, but he had barely slept. Every creak in the hallway and every gust of wind outside kept him awake. Old habits from old battles. He moved downstairs quietly, but the smell of coffee and frying bacon told him the house was already awake. Inside the dining room sat 3 boarders. Cornelius Webb, the traveling merchant with a loud laugh, Miss Prudence, an older schoolteacher with sharp eyes, and Timothy Hartwell, a young bank clerk who looked nervous even while buttering his toast. "Heard what happened yesterday," Webb said with a full mouth. "Bold thing you did, standing up to Crow." "Foolish is more like it," Miss Prudence added, though not unkindly. "Crow is a plague on this town." The kitchen door swung open. Abby stepped in with a pot of coffee. Her cheek was still swollen, the bruise a dark purple shadow she tried to hide with powder. Caleb's jaw tightened at the sight. "Morning, Mr. Morgan," she said softly, as if last night's danger were only dust that could be swept away. "Hope you slept well." "Well enough," he replied, though they both knew he hadn't. As she poured his coffee, her hand trembled slightly when Timothy asked, Mrs. Lane, do you think Crow will really come back?" Abby met the young man's eyes with calm honesty. "Men like Elias Crow always come back, Mr. Hartwell. It's only a question of when." She set down the pot with more force than needed. "But this is still my house, and fear will not be served with breakfast. Now, who needs more biscuits?" Quote. After the meal, Caleb stayed to help her clear the table, even though she insisted she didn't need help. When the two were alone in the kitchen, her shoulders dropped, her brave face melting away. "You should leave town," she whispered as she scrubbed a plate with too much force. "Take your horse. Go before Crow comes back. He'll kill you. He'll kill anyone who stands between him and what he wants." Caleb dried a dish beside her. "And what does he want?" She hesitated. Then the plate slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. She knelt to pick up the pieces. Caleb knelt too, their hands brushing as they reached for the same shard. "My husband owed him more than money," she said quietly. "Thomas, he wasn't a good man." Toward the end, he got involved with Crow's business. Let them use our barn for hiding stolen goods, lied for them, protected them. And now Crow wants you to continue the arrangement. She nodded. He wants the boarding house, a safe place for his men, a place no one questions. And if you refuse, he'll take everything, or he'll kill me. Quote. Caleb stood, dumping the broken pieces into the waste bin. "Running won't solve it." She looked up at him sharply. "How would you know?" He took off his coat, rolling up his sleeves, the scars on his arms, saber cuts, bullet marks, burns, caught her breath. "The war," she whispered. "Among other things," he said. "I've been running 11 years. Doesn't matter how far you ride. The past follows." She studied him, eyes softening. "So you've decided to make your stand in my kitchen?" He chuckled. "There are worse places." They worked together in silence until the dishes were done. Abby hung her apron on the hook and looked at him with a mix of fear and hope. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know enough." Before either could say more, the bell above the front door chimed. Walter Braddock from the general store stepped in, sweating from worry. "Mrs. Lane, I'm sorry to say this, but I can't extend credit anymore." He swallowed. "Crow came by this morning. Said anyone helping you would answer to him." Abby's face did not flinch. "I understand, Mr. Braddock. How much do I owe you?" $14.60. "I'll get it to you by week's end." After Mr. Braddock left, Abby sank at the kitchen table. Caleb saw the tight ledger book in her hands, numbers telling a story of a woman holding the world together with threadbare hopes. "He's cutting off your supplies," Caleb said. "It's what he does," she replied. "Squeeze until there's nothing left." Quote. The rest of the day moved in tense quiet. Caleb fixed a broken shutter, hauled water, kept an eye on the road. The town seemed to hold its breath. Doors shut early. People avoided meeting Abby's eyes. Everyone was waiting for Crow. Near sundown, Sheriff Dawes appeared, climbing the porch steps with a nervous sweat. "Now listen, Morgan," he said breathlessly. "I heard what happened. You can't just shoot up the place and stir trouble. We like peace in this town." "Seems to me the trouble was already here," Caleb replied. "You just ignored it." Dawes fidgeted. "Crow's got connections. Judges, marshals, people with power. If you cross him again, he'll bury you. And her too." Quote. "Is that a warning?" Caleb asked. "A friendly one," the sheriff muttered. "Be smart. Leave town." After he left, Caleb found Abby in the garden pulling weeds with angry force. "He's right," she said without turning. "Crow has men in every corner. Fighting him is like fighting a whole army. Every army has weak spots." She looked up. "And were you an officer?" "Captain," later major, though by the end there wasn't much left to command. "Which side?" she asked gently. "Both," he said after a pause. "Neither." It stopped mattering after a while. They worked side by side as the sun dipped low. There was a strange peace in the simple work, the honest sweat. Caleb found himself watching her more than the weeds, how she pushed her hair behind her ear, the strength in her jaw, the tired hope in her eyes. "You're staring," she said softly. "Can't help it." She didn't look away this time. "What do you see, Mr. Morgan?" "A survivor," he said. "Someone worth defending." Their eyes locked, and something shifted. Soft, real, almost frightening. Before either spoke, distant hoofbeats broke the moment. A rider approached fast, dust-covered, wearing men's clothes, riding hard. "Caleb Morgan," the woman called. "I've been tracking you for 3 months." Caleb stiffened. "Do I know you?" "No, but I bring a message from Colonel Harrington." Caleb froze. "Harrington's dead." "That's what they want you to think," she said, "and men are following me, dangerous men." Abby stepped forward. "You need shelter. Come inside." Caleb looked at Abby, then at the stranger. Trouble had found them again, and this time it wasn't Crow. The sandstorm hit Deadwood Gulch like an angry beast, chewing at rooftops and scratching across windows as if trying to rip the town off the map. Inside the boarding house, the walls shook with each gust of wind. Abby stood at the window, watching the storm turn the world red. Caleb stood behind her, loading his Colt, jaw tight with the weight of everything closing in at once. Rebecca Foster, the woman who claimed Colonel Harrington was alive, sat at the table, pale but steady. "Benson's men are near. They rode through the night. They'll reach town soon." "Benson won't stop until he gets what he wants," Caleb said. "But he isn't ready for this storm." "He's desperate," Rebecca answered. "Desperate men don't think, they destroy." Abby turned from the window, worry written plain on her face. "We need to get the boarders to safety." "No," Caleb said. "This is my fight." Abby stepped closer, her voice fierce. "Our fight, our home, our choice." Their eyes locked, and Caleb realized he wasn't alone anymore. Not in this battle, not in anything. Upstairs, they hurried the boarders into safer rooms with no windows facing the street. Thunderous hoofbeats shook the ground as silhouettes of riders appeared through the storm. Guns glinted in flashes of lightning like sandbursts. "They're here," Timothy Hartwell said, breathless. "Get everyone back," Caleb called. The first gunshot cracked like lightning. A window shattered. Fire followed. A torch hurled through the broken glass, landing on the parlor rug. Flames leapt fast, hungry for more. "Fire!" Abby hollered, grabbing a bucket of sand. Caleb stomped out the blaze, coughing through the smoke. The outlaws shouted from outside, taunting, threatening. "Come on out, widow woman," Elias Crow's voice cut through the storm. "Give us the house and the man, and you can keep your life." Caleb looked at Abby. She shook her head. "No running," she said. Rebecca chambered around. "Let's give them some trouble." Gunfire erupted. Lead tore through the walls like angry bees. Caleb's Winchester barked back, steady and sure. Rebecca shot true, dropping a man off his horse. Abby aimed at shadows, firing only when she was certain. Smoke thickened in the house. Upstairs, flames crawled across the roof beam. The boarders shouted in panic. "They'll burn us out," Abby said. "Then we give them something else to worry about," Caleb replied. They rushed the buckets up the stairs, choking on smoke. Abby beat back the flames, coughing hard, while Caleb smashed a hole in the window for air. The heat was unbearable. The boards crackled overhead. "Get them out the back," Caleb shouted. "I'll hold the front." Abby grabbed his wrist. "Don't you dare die." Caleb kissed her, quick, fierce, and desperate. "I'm done running. I'm not leaving you." Then he charged back downstairs into the storm's roar. Outside, the sandstorm turned men into shifting shadows. Caleb fired into the dark, each shot pushing back the rush of outlaws creeping toward the porch. Crow cursed loudly, firing blind. The roof creaked. Rebecca yelled, "They're trying to climb over the shed, left side." Caleb spun, fired, dropped another man. The storm screamed louder, sand tore at their faces. The ground trembled under pounding hooves. "They're pulling back," Rebecca shouted. "For now!" Crow wasn't done. A shape appeared through the storm. Crow himself, gun raised, hatred burning in his eyes. "End of the line, Morgan!" They fired at the same time. Caleb felt a bullet tear across his ribs. Crow spun backward, shot clean in the shoulder again. He stumbled, screamed, and signaled retreat. "Get the wounded! Fall back!" The storm swallowed them. Their horses vanished into the red haze. It was over. For the moment. Abby raced to Caleb as he sank to one knee, clutching his ribs. Her hands shook as she touched his face. "You're hurt." "It's just a graze," he muttered. Her breath trembled. "You scared me." "You scare me more," he said softly, "because losing you isn't something I can come back from." Her eyes filled but didn't fall. She wrapped her arms around him, steady and warm. They had survived, but Benson's shadow loomed larger than ever. By dawn, the storm had passed, but the town had gathered in the street, whispers swirling like ghosts. Word spread fast about Abby and Caleb fighting side by side. Some looked shocked. Others looked angry. Soon, a crowd formed outside the boarding house, led by Martha Pritchard and her sharp tongue. "Mrs. Lane, we need a word," Martha barked. Abby stepped out, head high despite the bruise on her cheek and the smoke stains on her dress. "You bring shame on this town," Martha snapped, "living like that with a gunman. What would your mother say?" Caleb moved to stand beside Abby, but she lifted her hand. "I'll answer." Quote. Her voice did not shake. "I've cooked for you, cleaned for you, helped your sick children, and this is how you repay me, with gossip and torches? I will not bow to small minds or big lies." Some murmured, shifting on their feet. Crow stepped forward from the crowd, sneering. "Pretty words, but you're still just a useless widow hiding behind a killer." And then he slapped her, the street gasped. Caleb stepped between them, rage burning in his eyes. "Touch her again and I'll bury you." But before anyone could draw a gun, Judge Farweather appeared. "That's enough," he thundered. "Crow, Leave this town by dawn or hang. As for the rest of you, shame on you. Mrs. Lane has more courage than this whole street combined." The crowd dissolved, ashamed and quiet. Later, in the garden behind the boarding house, Caleb took Abby's hands. "You deserve better than this town," he whispered. "I don't want a different town," she said. "I want a different life." Caleb swallowed hard. "Then maybe I should ask you something." Her breath caught. Caleb dropped to one knee in the garden dirt. "Abigail Lane, will you marry me?" Her hands trembled over her mouth. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." He pulled her close, kissing her as the sun dipped low and the future rose like a promise. But peace never lasted long in the West. Hoofbeats returned. Not Crow this time. Worse, federal marshals. They dragged Caleb away on false charges, claiming he was wanted for desertion and murder. Abby fought them until her voice broke, but they locked him in a wagon and rode away. Rebecca whispered urgently, "This is Benson. He's using the law to kill him." Abby stood trembling in the road, watching her husband disappear. Caleb looked back at her, chains heavy on his wrists, heart heavier in his chest. "Abby!" he shouted over the hoofbeats. "I'll come back for you. I swear it." She pressed a hand to her heart. "I'll be waiting." But the world wasn't ready to let them rest. Not yet. A sudden swarm of riders, Apaches, burst from the hills. The marshals panicked. Arrows filled the sky. And through the chaos, Caleb recognized a familiar face. Samuel Runningwater, an old friend from the war. "Hold on, Major," Samuel called. "We're getting you out." In moments, the marshals were driven off. Samuel unlocked Caleb's chains and handed him a gun and a horse. "Your woman is fighting for that town," Samuel said. "Ride to Denver, testify, bring Benson down, then go back and fight beside her." Caleb gripped the reins. "Tell her I'll return." "She knows," Samuel said with a grin, and Caleb rode hard and fast toward Denver and destiny. Weeks later, after testifying and helping expose Benson's corruption, Caleb returned to Deadwood Gulch. He expected gunfire, maybe a ruined town. Instead, he found barricades strong, rifles ready, and a handmade flag flying over the boarding house. A flag stitched with the word liberty. The town had risen. Abby had led them. And when she saw Caleb riding in, she ran to him, tears in her eyes, strength in her heart. "You came back," she whispered. "I always will." Their kiss felt like coming home. Together they faced Benson's last stand, exposed his crimes, and stood unbroken while the town rallied behind them. When Benson drew a hidden gun and tried to kill Caleb, Abby fired first, protecting the man she loved. By nightfall, Benson was arrested, his men disarmed, and Deadwood Gulch free for the first time in years. Later that night, music echoed down Main Street as Abby played Thomas Lane's restored mandolin, now reborn with new strings, new hope, new songs. Caleb held her as the town danced around them, lantern light flickering like stars brought down to earth. "Is this what you were looking for?" she asked softly, "when you rode into town?" "No," he said, kissing her hair. "I was looking for a place to hide." He squeezed her hand. "Instead, I found a reason to live."